Hey, welcome back, everybody. We just implemented a first version that we're getting pretty happy with of essentially the final parts of our level 1 Cerebus Mountain. So, and it kind of comes with a little bit of extra parallaxing and some extra like SHMUP Creator foo. So how about I just show you where we're at? Dimitri, thank you for this. I think we still need to do some tweaks, but we're getting there compared to where we were just last night with the images and whatnot. Like, this is much better. So a quick primer on setup here, because I think people are curious. So what we basically have here is we go to level layers. So what we did is, so we found out with SHMUP Creator that on the level layers that when you add a parallax value, which just basically means objects that move relative to the camera at different speeds, that it affects that whole layer regardless of where you're at in the world. So that works in a lot of cases, but for our case, we only wanted to have parallaxing for, this is basically the whole level, right? So this is our levels are a little bit longer. So this is the whole level. And if we just had a normal parallax set here, which you set on this value, then when we start the level over here, we have to actually offset the images in physical space way further away. So then by the time the player kind of gets to the space, then we can kind of the parallaxing for this. And that wasn't working for us because it really wasn't designed with that in mind. So these types of parallaxes are designed for large images and whatnot, but also with the thinking of like kind of a whole level in mind. So not just a part. So we kind of get into the last piece of our level here after we do the mid boss. And this is like the final approach and the final boss, right? So what we did is, and the funny thing for the tip as well, I was thinking the same way. We're starting to hive mind when we're getting to similar conclusions with the engine. So I needed to control over a few parallax layers. So what we have here, so let me do one thing real quick. So I'll turn off the default layer. So you can see here, we have we also have, these are pretty giant textures. So we had to slice them up so then we're not, so that the engine can be better at both power of 2, but also at handling the textures when it draws it. So the way we set it up was, so here you can see that this is basically 4 images. It starts here. And I think that's okay to see. It's a little bit dark, but not much I can do about that. So, and that's one of the pieces of feedback, Dimitri. I'm noticing that we're probably, like the highlights are great, but we're kind of missing some of the highlights from the light sources. And you'll see when I run the 2 demos here. So, but anyways, short version is we sliced up the main image into 4 pieces. And then we basically pulled them together. And then what we did is we made sure to, with the attach, so every image is attached to the first part of the image. So that way, when we move the image around, it brings all of them along with it. You can still move these, but you don't want to move those each time by themselves, right? And one of the tricks that we had to do, because this is taking up about 5 or 6 screens, is we had to go into preferences. No, not preferences. We needed to make sure that, let me close this, that because we're basically faking, these aren't background images in this case. So these are considered, they're basically brought them in as enemy types because we wanted to put them on waypoints so then they can move independently and we have precise control of kind of how they move and what the parallax looks like. Because normal layers in the background of SHMUP Creator are in the skybox and those parallax, but you only have 5 layers there and you can't put anything beyond the skybox. So if you want to do stuff that parallaxes like level geometry or whatnot in front of those skyboxes, and you still want to have layering, then you need to change the render order, which is easy enough to do. That's a different tutorial. But also you then of course need to be able to set their motion. So in order to achieve that, what we need to do is we had to go into game settings under the game editor. And here, what I was finding is that as basically my previous wave off camera termination, because these are enemies, was set to 5 seconds. So there might be a bit of a performance here because enemies are going to live longer off screen if you let them pile up. But in shmups, mostly people are trying to shoot all enemies, and yeah, you have some stragglers, whatnot. But we needed the enemy, which is this background tile piece, to live long enough so it didn't get killed. Because when it got killed, because it's the lead, if you will, and everything's attached to it, then everything else that's currently being rendered would stop. But also, if you didn't do it this way, then and you attached everything like I did at first, if I attached all the this piece and this piece and this piece, if I attached all those to this piece, then these pieces don't become visible until this actually gets seen by the camera. And this is the camera, by the way, and this is the range outside of the camera. Blue is inside what the game sees, or what you see as the player. Yellow is the activation ranges. So yeah, so a lot of stuff said there. If anyone has questions, just put them out there. This is most of a sneak peek. So anyways, so what I did, so we did that, and then same thing. So I have basically a forest layer, you can see here. And the idea with the forest layer is that it's supposed to kind of be in the foreground, but not occlude enemies or the player. And we want to make sure you give it motion, because what we were finding, right, is that when you have a big, take a look here. When you have a really big image like we're doing here, you can see this. So you got the background, right? So we got the normal scrolling background, super cool, right? And then what I was finding is that when you get these really big images, not counting this, then you find you kind of start. Let me take a look here. Hopefully that's fine. Oh yeah, I have to come out here. So that it just feels like a giant moving image, and because you don't have anything to anchor it in the world, kind of in the foreground with parallaxing, then it just felt like it was just too luminous, and then you're like, oh well, the illusion's kind of messed up at that point. And so I was like, well, I scratched my head about how that was working. Talked to a buddy of mine, went back and forth with Dimitri, and so what we came up with was to essentially add these new parallax layers. Yeah, okay, cool. Making sure I've kind of got a version, so I don't want to break that here. Maybe I should save. Okay, so we've got that layer, and then we have one more layer, which is it's basically the fog layer. So you can see it here. And the fog layer, technically, I think this is it. Is this it? No. Come here, Foggy. It's kind of hard to see against all the images. But the cool thing is that if you go back to layers, you can set these in different layers, and you can toggle on and off all the elements. So that's a super helpful tip for people working in layers. And it's just like Photoshop or an onion, if you will, or like a sheet of paper. So you can hide the top one and see what's under the bottom one, right? So, and I'm just now starting to really mess with layers in a big way. So as you can see, I turned off all of the default layers where all the enemies and the player ship is and all that good stuff. So, but back to where I was at. So yeah, so basically, it's not that. Come on, where are you? I think it's this one right here. Yeah, okay. So you can see it here. It's a little too subtle, Dimitri. Like I think right now we're too much on the dark side. So I'm gonna make a build for you on this as well, and then let you kind of figure out like how we want to do highlights from the light, because yes, the mountain's overshadowing everything, and we have these really nice highlights on the Cerebus Demonic Titan mountain. We have a lot of dark here because the sun is sort of like it's cresting the backside and kind of setting, if you will, and because the image is so large, it also gives the sense of foreboding. So here, let me stop yapping and show you guys what this is. So. Also, a little pro tip for the people out there: whenever you want to check something, always make sure it's super easy just to always have that. And this is again where the camera is, so it's super easy to just always start checking where stuff is at, and only look at it from that perspective. But really, you also want to make sure that when you're doing enemy spawns, camera movements, any kind of logic, that you're always putting the activation range of the camera outside of the things that are activated. You always want to see it before and after, just to be able to test while you're doing it, because you'll find sometimes there'll be differences, and you don't want to go too far down the road making changes, and then only to find out that everything you built on top was incorrect in the way it got activated in the world. So if that doesn't make sense, feel free just to ask me some questions, and I can explain it further. So anyways, so let's just take a look. So we're gonna take a look at this version. Oh, don't worry about the chunky bits. These are just because I turned stuff off, and those guys are, I think, in the wrong layer maybe. Now that I look at it, it's probably fine. But here you can see, right, like the mountain is starting to come in. It's really dark. That's what I was talking about. I think, Dimitri, we want some highlights here from like the sky, the yellows that are going to hit the top of the forest here, kind of that thing. Even though the sun is setting, just some paints. I think we need to lighten it up a tiny bit there. And then you can see It wasn't quite how we envisioned, but then I have the second forest in the foreground coming in, which I really like that it sort of gives you the luminous of the large Cerebus mountain, and then you have the forest that's coming in, right? So, and you're flying over the top of this. I'll show this again with all the enemies and stuff like that. But then you can also see, it's harder to see right now, but we do have in between the forest and the mountain, there's the fog layer. And the fog layer is moving slower because it's further away from the camera, giving you the depth of illusion of depth. Yeah, that's what it is. And then, you know, with I think we also, with the fog layer, we probably need to brighten it up a little bit as well. Maybe hit it. It can still be kind of dark, but now that we have it in sections here, I think we just need to bring up a little bit more of the environmental highlights from the fake background and lighting, and then apply them to the forest. So that's what it looks like with just focusing on that. Again, I'm pretty happy with where we're at. Dimitri, you should also just be aware. I think, you know, here, if we're taking a look at the camera, right? So I didn't use, like, we could have, okay, so I've saved everything, so I just won't save again. So for instance, whoops, that's the main camera. I felt like, so there's a couple things. So let me back this up here. So one is, so we talked about that. I really like how the mountain has just a little bit more visibility here right before we go fully dark. And so as a result, what I did is I brought down Cerebus, not by much, but I brought him down a little bit more than we envisioned, right? So you can kind of see what that looks like again. Like, I mean, we could certainly bring him all the way, you know, like much lower. What I think, kind of what you were thinking was that he was going to be, yeah. So that's another thing with checking stuff. Because he will pop in, I have to activate the camera over here at least. Let's try that. Yeah. So, and click and down. So at least put it in frame. So we kind of envisioned this at first kind of being down here, pretty much right around there. And I think that it was just it might still work. So what I'm going to do, Dimitri, I'm also going to I'm going to give you a build, but I think it's about time I get you a license for SHMUP Creator and let you kind of tweak things a little bit as well. Because I'm finding artistic interpretation in kind of what I like here. And it's not quite what we envisioned. And I definitely want your input as well. So, yeah, so you get kind of a sense of how, when you're watching there, how the things are starting to parallax and move together, right? But I think what I came to at the end of the day is I wanted him to be just a little bit lower. Is it around here, I think? Yeah, close enough. I'm not going to save this. So, and then I also, along with the forest, I think with the forest, having the forest higher right around here was too much. I mean, it makes the forest more prominent. And I think the most important thing here is that Cerebus, the mountain, right? It's about this demonic titan that's gone to sleep, is really kind of the star of the show. And I know we put a little extra, vertical into the texture itself to kind of find that sweet spot. So, but anyways, my point is I'm gonna over the weekend I'll set you up so you can also tweak and tune things too. So, but here you can see again, kind of like, you know, what we got going on. Super excited about that. Again, the is really hard to see. I think I've actually covered up a chunk of the fog. Yeah, you can see the fog layer. I'm pointing the screen like you guys can see it, but you can see the fog layer as well. So like I said, I think brightening that up will probably help as well. It doesn't need to be super bright, just enough to make it pop more because it's against these darks. Okay, and then let's see one more time. So let's see this with, let's see here. Yeah, let's see this with Venemies. Okay, last call for alcohol. All right, so one more time here. And I'm not going to worry too much about, you know, like dodging and stuff like that because we're really looking at the art. I'll play this one-handed on the keyboard. But yeah, so you can see kind of like how it's coming in with, especially, I mean, the nice thing is that it is darker, and it certainly allows the enemy types to pop and contrast. Check it out when you kill Loki. These Loki bits, they also cast a little bit of light on, like there, right there. See those on the background? I mean, I know it's super far away, but whatever. I kind of like it because it brings the effects into the level a little bit more. So just to give a sense, I got like 1,000 hit points right now just for debugging. But here you can see like the fog layer. I could slow the fog layer down a little bit more. I don't want to really increase the speed of the forest too much more. Also, because we increased the speed of the forest, it doesn't fully match. And actually, it stopped a little bit sooner than I expected. I think it's because I moved it around. But the forest needed to the forest being the same width of the mountain meant that as the forest moves, I had to offset the forest further out. But yeah, but you can see kind of the framing and the thinking with like, this is, you know, where then you have the boss. So those are the takeaways. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm super excited. This was a lot of fun to work on. I'm going to tweak and jam on it more in over the weekend. And yeah, I think I like where we're going. This is the first time we've really implemented something like this. So it was a bit of a learning, a little bit of trial and error, but man, SHMUP Creator is super powerful. I got to sit down for basically an hour and a half tonight after work and just jam on this. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for following the channel. Much love. Talk to everyone soon. Bye.